It was around 4:30 in the afternoon, October 10th, 2018, right off 63rd and Indiana in Washington Park. The air was quiet, but not for long, because a brown car rolled through slow like it had a purpose. In a flash, windows dropped and shots cracked through the block, echoing off the brick walls. A young man hit the ground hard, one shot to the head, motionless before anyone could scream. His name was Ramon Waldo Dobine, only 22, from the 600 set. Hours before, he had been laughing online about an enemy's death. That enemy was Vantrease, Dooski the Man, Criss from MOB. But this story didn't start here. To really get it, you gotta rewind. Down on Chicago's South Side, streets don't need borders because every block already got one drawn in blood. Washington Park and West Woodlawn might look like neighbors on a map, but out here they speak different languages. It's a place where one wrong corner could cost you everything. Back in the mid-'80s, both hoods moved under the same flag, part of what people called the folk nation. But time changed things. The love turned sour. And soon the gangster disciples and black disciples stopped shaking hands. What used to be a united code became a street war built on revenge, pride, and neighborhood loyalty. Out here, crews don't fight for fame, they fight for identity. Around 56th to 59th near Wabash in Michigan sat a GD set called MOB, sometimes called MO or later Scrapp Gang. They had been around for years, older cats with roots deeper than most blocks in West Woodlawn. The new generation kept that legacy alive, carrying their hood with pride and violence. Mob's name started ringing louder when they began honoring one of their own. Brian Scrapp Weekly, a kid who made his name before he even made adulthood. His death years later would shape the whole identity of the set. That's why MOB started calling themselves Scrapp Gang, using his name like a banner in every block photo and every graffiti tag. Mob had strong ties with other GD and Mickey Cobra factions, and those connections gave them power. Their turf sat just a short drive from the infamous Parkway Gardens, better known to the world as O Block. Between those two spots lay King Drive, one of the most dangerous strips in the city. Just south of MOB's territory, another group was coming up, young, hungry, and deadly. The crew called themselves Team 600, a set of black disciples formed around 2009, coming straight out of the area between 59th and 62nd on King Drive. 600's founders were part of a new era of BDs. They were tight with O Block, Front Street, and Lamron, building something bigger than just a street corner. Their set carried names that became legends in drill culture: L.A. Capone, Rondo Number 9, and E-Die. The name 600 became known for both music and murder. When one of their youngest members, Lil Steve, got killed, the block was renamed Steve Drive in his memory. That's when everything changed. Washington Park and West Woodlawn now stood as two mirrors facing each other. Same age, same history, same pain, but different flags. Mob repped the gangster disciples and 600 repped the black disciples, and their streets practically touched. That closeness made them enemies. One small insult, one wrong stare, could set off a war that would last over a decade. It wasn't about drugs or money anymore. It was about names, pride, and fallen brothers. The line was drawn in the middle of Chicago's South Side, and nobody planned to back up. By the summer of 2011, the city already felt heavy. The sound of gunfire was becoming background noise, and people learned to tell the difference between fireworks and revenge. On July 17th, 19-year-old Leon Baldy Miller from 600 got caught near 60th and Prairie when someone opened fire on him. He died that night at Mount Sinai Hospital. Nobody got caught, but word spread quick that GDs from nearby sets might have had something to do with it. For 600, that shooting marked the start of bad blood. Just 2 months later, it got worse. On September 19th, 15-year-old Lil Steve, one of 600's youngest, was walking through his own block when two young shooters came out of an alley. The main shooter was Brian Scrapp Weekly, a 14-year-old from MOB. He and another teen named Moochie pulled up on Steve and opened fire, hitting him in the head and chest. Steve dropped right there on 60th and Prairie, only a few blocks from where Baldy had been killed. When the ambulance came, the neighborhood already knew what that meant: war. Police later arrested both teens, but the streets didn't wait for paperwork. 600 renamed their block Steve Drive, and every BD from that area vowed to get revenge. They stopped seeing MOB as just another GD set and started treating them like sworn enemies. Inside MOB, Scrapp's name became legendary overnight. He was just 14, but to his people, he was a soldier. They painted 600K on walls, mocked their rivals online, and used the name Scrap Gang like a stamp of honor. The war didn't stop with that one hit. In 2012, retaliation came in waves. One night in September, MOB's Floyd got caught slipping near 59th and Wabash. A 17-year-old 600 member named Draw Philly crept through an alley and shot him in the face. Floyd survived but carried the scar as a warning. Police picked up Draw Philly later and hit him with 31 years, but the damage was already done. Days later, 600's rising star La Capone got ambushed near 61st and Indiana. He survived too, but rumor on the block said MOB had pulled that move. Not long after, Scrapp himself tweeted at LA saying, "Damn flat, who hit you up?" which was basically a taunt out in the open. From that point, the beef stopped being neighborhood drama. It became personal. Other gangs soon took sides. Sets like 051, Young Money, Jarro City, and STL EBT rolled with Mob and the GDs. On the BD side, 600 leaned on O Block and Front Street. Now it wasn't just two sets beefing. It was whole alliances clashing around Washington Park. Every loss turned into another reason for payback. Every corner got a story. By the end of 2012, too many funerals had been held and too many names had become hashtags. On one side stood MOB, carrying Scrapp's legend like a badge. On the other stood 600, holding Steve's memory like a vow. It wasn't just a fight anymore. It was a cycle that nobody could stop. And as the years rolled on, the bodies would only stack higher. By 2014, the war between MOB and 600 had already turned personal on every level. The streets were filled with whispers about who would be next, and every block felt like a trap waiting to be set off. On June 7th, 2014, the news broke that Brian Scrapp Weekly had been killed. It happened near Mob's own territory, close to the same streets where he had once walked with pride. A car slid through the area and opened fire, spraying bullets before speeding off into the distance. Scrapp got hit multiple times, and when it was over, he was gone instantly. There were no arrests made that day, but nobody really needed a detective to explain what had happened. Everyone on both sides already knew this was payback for Lil Steve's murder back in 2011. Word spread fast across the South Side that 600 had finally evened the score. Some of their members even smiled quietly, feeling like the ghost of Steve Drive had finally been settled. In the hood, that's how people saw it. Revenge didn't need paperwork, it only needed bodies to fall. For Mob, though, Scrapp's death felt like a bullet through the heart of their whole identity. He was more than just another name on a shirt. He was the one who had made Mob feared again, the one who had fired the first shot that started everything. Losing him was losing a part of their pride. But instead of letting that pain die, MOB turned it into purpose. They started calling themselves Scrap Gang, painting murals, tagging walls, and wearing his name on everything they touched. His death made the feud unbreakable. Now both sides had someone they die for. 600 had Steve Drive, and MOB had Scrap Gang, two names tied to two blocks that stood less than a mile apart, both representing vengeance and loyalty. From that moment, the war took on a rhythm that never stopped. Every gunshot became a conversation, every funeral became motivation. By the time the smoke cleared from Scrapp's murder, Chicago was bracing for another wave of retaliation. The cycle was turning again, and nobody could tell where it would stop next. By 2015, both MOB and 600 were deep into the kind of war that no one could walk away from. The blocks between 59th and 63rd felt cursed because somebody was always sliding through. Every few months, another name got added to the list of losses. The streets were full of talk that MOB and 051 Young Money had teamed up heavy that year, while 600 stayed close with O Block and Front Street. The alliances meant that the fight wasn't just local anymore. It was turning into a Southside conflict stretching across multiple neighborhoods. On April 3rd, 2015, 600's Lil Boo, whose real name was Darren Lloyd, got shot dead. People said it was a setup near 59th Street, and the whispers pointed straight toward MOB and 051. Lil Boo had been one of 600's older respected members, so his death stung deep. Just 2 weeks later, another 600 member, Travis Stello Bousfield, was murdered. The story on the street said MOB's K-Money and his crew had a hand in it. Losing two members in the same month sent shockwaves through 600's circle. Mob was getting bolder, and 600 was bleeding. By early 2017, the energy around 600 had changed. They had lost too many members and friends, including their O-Block ally T. Roy, who was killed on February 14th by a GD from Taekwon World. That single murder changed everything because it led to the creation of a new alliance called the Get Back Gang, or GBG. This group was a mix of shooters from 600 and O-Block, and they weren't built for peace. Their mission was simple: get revenge for every loss they'd taken since the start of the decade. One of the young killers making noise during that time was Machiavelli Mikado Sampson, a name that quickly became feared. He was known for being aggressive, focused, and down for anything that kept 600's name alive. Around May 22nd, 2017, Mikado and his partner Cap F12 were linked to the murder of Jamanica Mob Jamo Warren, a respected MOB member and one of the older voices in the set. Jamo got shot down in West Woodlawn, and the word was that it was Mikado and Cap F12 behind the trigger. His death hurt MOB deeply because Jamo wasn't just a name on the roster. He was a big homie figure who kept their younger guys grounded. If that wasn't enough, the violence took a darker turn just a month later. On June 28, 2017, two women close to MOB, Juliet Nana Washington and Janine White Girl Dowell, were stopped at a red light near 55th and Wabash. A stolen gray sedan pulled up behind them, and before they could react, gunmen jumped out. It was Mikado from 600 and Lil Scud from O-Block, and they fired over 20 rounds into the vehicle. Nana got hit 14 times, White Girl 8 times, both dying instantly. They were mothers, not shooters, but in a war like this, affiliation was enough to make you a target. The community was shaken. It wasn't just gang members getting hit anymore. Regular people connected to these sets were dying in broad daylight. Police struggled to solve anything because no one wanted to talk, but they eventually caught up to Mikado and Lil Scud. DNA from the victim's car and surveillance footage tied them to the murder. Years later, Mikado was sentenced to 26 years in prison, but in 2017, the war was still raging, and nobody was ready to slow down. That summer, MOB tried to even the score. On August 8, 2017, a shootout went down near 600's territory. Mikado got shot multiple times in the legs, and an innocent bystander named Alfred A.J. Mitchell, only 23, was killed in the crossfire. People said the shooter might have been from a Mickey Cobra set called 757, working alongside MOB. It was an attempt to take out one of 600's most active hitters, and though they didn't kill him, it sent a message that MOB wasn't backing down. Even after getting shot, Mikado came back more violent. People online said he went insane that year, putting in work on multiple hits. Around July 17, 2017, FBG Brick, a GD rapper from STL EBT and cousin to mob rapper Ruga, was killed along with his friend Kobe Mack. Brick's death hit the GD side hard, and 600 shooters, especially Mikado, were rumored to be behind it. Then a few months later, September 26, 2017, GBG struck again, killing TB from Taekwon World, the same crew responsible for T-Roy's death. That hit was celebrated across O-Block and 600 as one of their biggest wins that year. By the end of 2017, GBG had stacked up at least 9 confirmed kills, including members and affiliates of MOB and its allied sets. It was open warfare, and the score was never even for long. On both sides, people were dying so fast that new names replaced old ones before the paint dried on the murals. What made these years worse was how public everything became. Instagram lives, diss tracks, and memorial posts made the war look like entertainment, but the funerals were real. By the time 2017 ended, both MOB and 600 had taken too many losses to count. The hatred was old now, something that had passed from one generation to the next. The guns might have changed, but the reason stayed the same. Someone had died, someone had to pay, and Chicago's South Side stayed caught in the middle of it. By 2018, MOB needed a new face, someone who could speak for the set in a way that carried weight beyond the block. That person turned out to be Vantrease Dooski the Man Criss, a 25-year-old rapper straight from MOB territory near 56th and Michigan Avenue. He wasn't just another rapper chasing clout. He was someone who really came from the life he talked about. Every lyric, every post, every look in his eyes carried the energy of the streets that raised him. Dooski had been around since the early drill days, and people knew him for his confidence and wild personality. He wasn't scared to say what others whispered. His tracks carried that raw GD energy, the kind that made outsiders pay attention and made ops feel disrespected. One of his most popular songs was Shooters, a collaboration with FBG Wooski, another well-known GD figure from STL EBT. The song became a neighborhood anthem, not because it was radio-friendly, but because it was street truth. It talked about revenge, pride, and what it meant to stand on business for your block. He was loyal to Scrapp Gang to the core. Every time he performed or recorded, he made sure people knew that MOB was still active and proud. Online, Dooski was a different kind of presence. He turned social media into a battleground, constantly going live, dropping diss tracks and clowning rivals by name. He didn't hide where he was from, and that made him both famous and vulnerable. On Instagram, he would talk directly to his enemies, sometimes mocking their fallen friends, other times flexing how protected he was. The streets watched him like a movie. Mob saw him as a symbol of strength, someone keeping their set alive in the middle of chaos. The younger members looked up to him, seeing him as the one who could finally put MOB back in the spotlight. But for 600, Dooski was a walking target. They saw him as the loudest voice of their biggest enemy. To them, he was a man who disrespected their dead and bragged about it on camera. By the time fall 2018 came around, everyone in Washington Park could feel the tension building. Dooski had gained fans, but he had also gained enemies who were watching closely. People in the hood said he was moving too freely, too confident in his safety. It was like he knew something was coming, but didn't care. The name Dooski the Man had become bigger than rap. It was pride, defiance, and danger rolled into one. The afternoon of October 9th, 2018, started off calm around 56th and South Michigan Avenue. It was just after 3 in the afternoon when Dooski the Man went live on Instagram. He was standing with a few of his guys outside, talking, laughing, and showing love to his followers. The camera caught him smiling as he said, "I'm good. I got guns around me." In that moment, it looked like he believed nothing could touch him on his own block. What Dooski didn't know was that his enemies were already watching. On that same live, people noticed a 600 affiliate named Cap F12 had joined the stream. Minutes later, a brown car started creeping down the street, slow and deliberate. Nobody thought much of it at first. The sound of cars rolling by was normal in that neighborhood. But when the windows came down, everything changed. Shots exploded through the air, echoing off the brick walls and street poles. People started ducking for cover, running between parked cars. Dooski got hit in the head instantly, and a woman standing next to him caught a bullet in her leg. The car didn't stop, it just sped off down Michigan Avenue, leaving the block in chaos. Within minutes, sirens were cutting through the noise. Neighbors peeked from porches while others tried to help. Someone yelled for an ambulance. Another tried to keep pressure on Dooski's wound. Paramedics rushed him to the University of Chicago Medical Center, but it was too late. Vantrease Dooski the Man Criss was pronounced dead at 4:33 p.m. He was 25 years old. News spread across the South Side before the police even left the scene. Mob members flooded social media in disbelief, posting pictures, crying, and swearing revenge. The loss hit hard because Dooski wasn't just another member. He was their voice. He had kept the set alive during its quiet years, and now he was gone in front of everyone. Meanwhile, 600's affiliates began mocking the death online. Within hours, stories started floating that 600 had used Dooski's Instagram Live to find his exact location. The timing made sense, and people connected it to Cap F12, the same man suspected in previous MOB shootings. The streets already knew what that meant. MOB wasn't going to wait on justice or police. They had their own rulebook. By that evening, everyone around Washington Park and West Woodlawn was talking about get back. Mob members were on the move, angry and ready to make someone pay. When one of your own gets killed on camera, you don't sleep, you don't eat, and you definitely don't wait. The code was simple and cold. If one of yours falls, somebody from the other side has to drop next. The South Side was bracing for something brutal, and nobody realized how fast it would come. The morning after Dooski the Man's murder, Washington Park felt tense enough to choke on. Mob wasn't talking much online, but everyone knew what that silence meant. They were plotting. The streets moved on energy. and you could feel it shifting. A few of Dooski's closest friends spent that night in cars, sliding through 600 territory with guns on their laps. Someone reportedly said, "We can't let that slide. He died on live. We get back fast." By the afternoon of October 10th, less than 24 hours after Dooski was killed, MOB was ready. They moved quietly through King Drive, near the same area that 600 called home. That zone was known for violence, bordered by abandoned buildings and stores that closed before dark. It was the kind of place where anyone from the wrong set stood out fast. MOB wasn't searching for a specific person at first. They were looking for any sign of 600, anyone with a connection to that side. At around 4:30 p.m., Ramon Waldo Dobine, a 22-year-old member of 600, was walking with his girlfriend near 63rd and Indiana Avenue. It was broad daylight, people were around, but that didn't matter. A dark car started creeping toward them, slow, like it was cruising, the windows lowered halfway. The girlfriend later told police she heard someone yell out before shots erupted. Bullets tore through the air, striking Waldo in the head. He dropped instantly. When the shooting stopped, the car sped off and disappeared into traffic. Witnesses called 911, but by the time paramedics arrived, Waldo was already gone. The time of death was 4:37 p.m., almost exactly 23 hours after Dooski had died. The symmetry hit everyone hard. It wasn't random. It was personal. It was a message. Word spread fast across Chicago. MOB members started celebrating online, posting cryptic captions like "straight homicide on BD." Lil Sean, one of MOB's younger members, even hinted about it in lyrics that hit social media hours later. The drill community noticed how fast the retaliation came. Some said it was the quickest revenge killing in recent Chicago gang history. Within minutes, social media turned into a digital battlefield. MOB affiliates were posting pictures dissing 600 and laughing about what had just happened. Screenshots of Waldo's body started circulating on Instagram and Twitter. People were making memes, editing videos, and tagging songs over images of both Dooski and Waldo. It wasn't just violence anymore. It was spectacle. Inside 600, disbelief mixed with grief. Many couldn't believe that MOB had responded so quickly, hitting back before the city even buried Dooski. The streets whispered the same phrase over and over. Mob got back in 23 hours. It became folklore almost overnight. 2 names, 2 days, 2 murders. Chicago had seen plenty of killings before, but few had carried that kind of poetic timing. For Mob, it was get back. For 600, it was a declaration of war. And for the rest of the city, it was a reminder that nothing in this life stayed even for long. 2 weeks later, October 22nd, 2018, the streets gathered to bury Dooski the Man. His funeral was held at Bethlehem Star Missionary Baptist Church, sitting at 92nd and Cottage Grove Avenue on Chicago's South Side. It was supposed to be a day of peace, but everyone already knew it wouldn't be. Hundreds showed up from MOB, STL, EBT, Jarrow City, and 051 Young Money. It felt more like a street summit than a funeral. The tension was heavy, and so was the security. Police cars circled the area that morning, and officers warned locals to stay inside. The department had received tips that violence might break out during the service. Days earlier, King Von, Memo 600, and other BDs had allegedly FaceTimed FBG Wooski, mocking him and threatening to surprise him at the funeral. Word about that call spread through the neighborhoods like wildfire. Even the older folks in the area could feel something bad coming. Inside the church, the service ran smooth at first. People sang, cried, and shared stories about Dooski's life. His casket was surrounded by red roses, and his picture stood beside it with the words, "Long live Dooski the Man." Around 12:30 p.m., the service ended, and mourners started walking outside. Some were lighting cigarettes, others hugging and talking quietly. The street was packed with cars, cameras, and police. Then, without warning, gunfire erupted from somewhere down the block. Witnesses later said it sounded like fireworks at first, then turned into something louder and faster. At least 40 to 50 shots ripped through the air. People screamed and scattered in every direction. Some ran back inside the church, others dove behind parked cars. The sound echoed off buildings, and smoke filled the air. When it was over, 6 people were shot, including 4 men and 2 women. One of them was FBG Wooski, who took a bullet to the head while standing near the church entrance. He collapsed immediately, blood running down his face. but somehow he survived. Paramedics rushed him to the hospital, and the video of him being carried away would later go viral across social media. The scene looked like a war zone. People were crying, cars had shattered windows, and bullet casings covered the street. Police swarmed the area, detaining several people but refusing to confirm who fired first. Stray bullets even hit a gas line, causing it to rupture and spill fumes into the street. News reporters arrived within minutes, broadcasting live while shell casings still smoked on the pavement. Local news headlines the next day read, "Gunfire erupts at funeral of murdered rapper." It was one of those moments that made even Chicago's hardened residents shake their heads. The idea of violence breaking out at a funeral wasn't new, but the scale of it made national news. For mob and its allies, it was seen as another chapter in a war that refused to end. For 600, it was payback that came full circle. For everyone else, it was just heartbreak stacked on heartbreak. Mothers cried, kids stayed inside, and another name got added to the endless list of Chicago tragedies. The funeral shooting marked a new low in the story of Mob and 600. It wasn't just about gang beef anymore. It had become a symbol of how far the city's pain had spread, touching every corner of the South Side. What started as two young men losing their lives years earlier had turned into a cycle that no one could stop. And in that moment outside the church, it felt like the whole neighborhood was bleeding again. After the funeral, the streets went quiet, but everyone knew it wasn't peace. Mob had lost Dooski, and 600 had lost Waldo, yet neither side truly won. Years later, Mikado died in custody from a brain tumor, and many others ended up locked away or buried. No one was ever charged for either killing. Chicago kept moving, but the memories stayed on the walls, in murals and in music. The names Scrapp, Steve, Dooski, and Waldo turned into symbols of loyalty and revenge. What started as neighborhood beef became a story that defined a generation, a reminder that in Chicago's street code, vengeance never really sleeps.